Today, we recognize and we celebrate an extraordinary individual. We are honored and blessed beyond measure to have this person join us today and to receive this award. This visionary figure has become synonymous with what visionary thinking looks like. He has fiercely ventured into uncharted territory, breathing unbelievable numerous startups into existence. And while this remarkable individual is widely known as the co-founder of a groundbreaking online movie and television streaming service, the real work is really about the impact he has had globally as the founding CEO of multiple startups and has had impact worldwide in people's lives in transformative ways. Beyond those pivotal accomplishments, he has done amazing things in the entrepreneurial space. In addition to co-founding this company, he has had numerous other startups that have generated impact and influence on people all around the world. He embraces the power of storytelling. Our distinguished guest has captivated audience worldwide, sharing his message of success and impact and influence around the world. Yet what truly drives him in the core of who he is an unwavering belief that no idea is inherently flawed. Don't you love that? And so it is with a great honor to award this year's Master of Influence Award to Marc Randolph. Everybody give Marc a big hand. Have a seat, Marc. Well, what a joy it is to spend time with you. Marc and I were having some laughs backstage about our mutual failure as golfers.
Yeah, it kind of took some personal understanding of myself to realize that the reason I was so bad was me, not something else.
Okay, so insight number one, most of the reasons we're bad in life is us, right? So Marc, Netflix was your 6th startup, is that right?
That is absolutely correct. It was an overnight success after 20 years.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. So you're an expert at the whole entrepreneurial mindset and how all that works and all that. This is a room full of people who start companies and go out and impact the world. If you were going to share 3 top things or ideas with the group that they should be thinking about as they embark on their own entrepreneurial journey, what would you suggest to them?
Well, there's one simple thing which really separates entrepreneurs from everyone else, which is that entrepreneurs start. And that sounds trite, but everyone has ideas, but most people don't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. They're scared, and naturally so. Doing something where you're uncertain of the outcome is scary. But if you don't start, you don't begin that process of learning why your idea may not be a good one. So number one is certainly start. And the second thing is focus. There's always 1,000 things that need to get done. And the challenge is, how do you pick the 2 or 3 that if you get those right, all the rest go away?
That's so good. We are storytellers by nature. Most of them are true. Some of them are true once in a while. And we just talked about this backstage, and so I mentioned that I was going to ask you this. Many people in this room tell the story that Blockbuster passed on Netflix. Let's settle it once and for all. Is that story true?
That story is 100% true.
And why did they do it, do you think? What happened?
Well, the background for this is that after a year and a half of stumbling, we had finally figured out the business model that was going to work. It was a subscription program, which is very expensive, but the quick answer is that we were on the verge of going broke being successful. And when you're in that circumstance as an entrepreneur, you do something called pursue strategic alternatives. But you recognize that means we've got to sell this sucker fast. And the strategic alternative was Blockbuster. Yeah. And we finally got a meeting, and we flew to Dallas, went up to the 27th floor of some big glass and steel building. We went to the conference room that was about this size. And In we come, and in come the Blockbuster folks, and we pitch them that we'd combine forces. They would run the stores, we'd run the online business, we'd build a blended model, and everyone wins. And it was going great until they asked the big question, which is, how much? And we happened to be, at that point, about $50 million in the hole. And so we thought what a nice, neat boat would be. $50 million. And that's pretty much the reaction that we got. And of course, it was a long, quiet ride because back to California, because now we thought this meeting was going to save us, and now they weren't going to save us. They were going to compete with us. And now, gosh, 20 some odd years later, the company that they could have bought for $50 million is worth about $150 billion.
Wow. 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 Amazing. And what is Blockbuster worth now?
Listen, you can't gloat about this because disruption's painful in a lot of ways, but this is a company which at its peak had 60,000 employees, had 9,000 stores, was doing about $6 billion in business, and now it has one store left.
Wow, it's unbelievable. So you are successful by any measure. And one of the things that you talk about, which I love, is this notion of no idea is inherently flawed. And what is the philosophy that you've adopted that you would even encourage us to adopt as it relates to ideas?
Mike, you got it backwards.
Oh.
Every idea is flawed.
Oh, right.
So listen, we've all been to a brainstorming meeting, right?
Yeah.
And you're all sitting around the table and you have snacks, and in comes the moderator and they go, okay, some ground rules. There's no such thing as a bad idea. Well, bullshit. Every idea is a bad idea. That is the nature of ideas, that they're just ideas, and most of them don't work. And I think one of the most profound things I've learned in my 4 decades as an entrepreneur is that you can't tell in advance if it's a good idea or a bad idea without trying it. I mean, my book, I'm going to get this in.
Perfect.
My book is called...
I should have had one.
No, that will never work, because that is what every entrepreneur hears when they pitch an idea, because the reality is most of them don't. And it's that starting thing. The way to find out, you have to collide your idea with the reality. You know, no business plan survives a collision with a real customer.
That's great. No business plan survives an idea with a real customer. What part has resilience played in your journey?
I'd say it's a pretty important characteristic, because you do not keep trying things that don't work over and over and over again without some degree of persistence. But I've got to clarify, this is not, obstinate persistence. For an entrepreneur, you're doing things that you know are probably not going to work. That's the nature of entrepreneurship, is you're starting down a path without being able to see what's around the other side. And what keeps you motivated is not having to, overcome the depression of failure. It's that every time you learn something doesn't work, you also get some glimmer of what just might work. And that is what motivates you to keep going. It is exciting. It's like doing a jigsaw puzzle, and each time you put in a piece, that gives you a hint of what the next piece might look like, what the next piece might look like. And then the thing finally begins to take shape, and you can see the big picture.
So how do you know when the moment is to press through versus the moment to say, I got to get out of this?
I wish I had a good answer for that. I don't know. This is going to sound silly. I never give up. I never give up voluntarily. It's not that I have to keep persisting. It's just that's my nature. I get knocked down. Don't get me wrong. I'll be depressed for a while, but then something happens, and I can't wait to try the next thing. The reason you give up is someone forces you to. You run out of money. You get an offer you can't refuse, but you don't do it just because you go, I think I've had enough.
That's enough. And this is, I love the way you frame that, because it's really about what's going on inside until what's going on outside changes what I've got to do.
Yeah, it's very much. It's very much an internal process. I mean, you're constantly evaluating the world, but you're thinking all the time. Listen, this is the best business in the world. Being an entrepreneur is thrilling because you get to come to work every day and sit around a table with super smart people and solve really interesting puzzles.
Right.
I can't imagine a better job than that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So everyone in this room is always out in the world trying to get their message across, be disrupting traditional thought, making things change in the world. What has been your secret or your sense of doing that yourself? What is critical for us to understand about being disruptors and idea producers and being persuasive?
Yeah, disruption fundamentally, it takes courage. Because if it was easy, someone would have done it already. And it's not as simple as just, oh, let's try this. Usually, disrupting yourself requires walking away from all the things that are working. And that's what's so challenging. That when you say, I need to change my distribution, but what's going to happen is it's going to tank my numbers for 3 or 4 quarters. Do you have the courage to do that? I'm going to try this approach, and I bet you my top salespeople are going to quit. Do you have the courage to do that? That's the primary characteristic for changing yourself. But listen, as the Blockbuster story tells us quite clearly, that if you're unwilling to disrupt yourself, I know lots of people in California who are more than happy to disrupt your business for you.
Wow, yeah, that's big. What is the enemy of the entrepreneur? What is the virus that ultimately captures somebody? So we come to a fork in the road and this person succeeds and this person does not. Is there a primary thing we should be inoculated from or be paying attention to?
Yeah, this is a business which is prone to burnout. There is always more to do. Fundamentally, you're always under-resourced. And I think what gets us is that grind, which is why I always am telling people you have to have a second life. I mean, this is not my own quote, but basically the only person who's going to remember that you were at the office late for 20 years in a row is your kids. You have to make sure this is a marathon and not a sprint. That's what happens. You get to the point you just can't physically, mentally, emotionally do it anymore. You have to recognize, I can go home.
And is that part of it, having the discipline of knowing when to say no or when I need to go home? Is that the key to overcoming that?
All right, well, since we're storytellers, can I tell one quick
Please,
story?
tell a slow one.
So I lived in Europe for about 24 months. I lived in Paris because I was running software, the marketing for a big international software company. And I traveled 4 days a week. I'd fly to Milan, then fly home. I'd fly to London the next day and fly home. I'd fly to Copenhagen, fly home. I was in airports all the time. And as you can imagine, with traffic and general procrastination, I was late a lot. And I would find myself sprinting through the terminal in my overcoat with my briefcase. And I made a big fundamental realization that 49% of the time that happened, I missed the plane anyway. I'd come running to the gate, huffing and puffing, and you could see the plane pulling away. The other 49% of the time, I'd come running up to the gate, oh, we're delayed for 20 minutes, and I'd be sitting in my seat, stewing in my sweat.
Right.
It made a difference between making or missing the plane 2% of the time.
Wow.
And I vowed then and there, I am never going to run for an airplane again.
Wow.
And I haven't. And this is not about airplanes.
Apparently somebody was running for a plane this week.
Yeah, you've been there. Running for airplanes happens in every business. You are up at 2 o'clock in the morning polishing your deck for a presentation you have to make. You're double checking someone's work. You're doing all these things which 98% of the time don't make the difference. And that is the big realization for me, is that most of the things I was doing didn't make the difference. That if I was smart about picking the 2 or 3 things, as I mentioned earlier, that were important, gosh, it made my job so much easier. And that was the key. to this longevity. That was the key to having a life. That was the discipline that allowed me to basically every Tuesday, seriously, at 5 o'clock, I'd leave the office, I'd have a date night with my wife, rain or shine, crisis or no crisis, I was out the door. And that's what allows you to preserve this and do this as I did for 4 decades.
That's so, yeah. Yes, yes. What, in your estimation, is the difference when you look at a lot of companies, I am sure. People come to you often and say, Mark, I've got a great idea. Can I have some money? And sometimes you say yes, and sometimes you say no. How do you know when you're looking at a good idea?
So I'll mention it a slightly different way in that
Sure.
there's 3 things that I'm looking at when I'm evaluating a pitch, okay? So number 1, of course, is the people. Is this the right team to make this happen? Number 2 is the people. And number 3
Let me guess.
is the people. Yeah, you get the idea. It's all about this. This is absolutely a business where it is the jockey, not the horse. And there's a reason why, if you've done it successfully once, the odds are tremendously good you'll do it again. And that's what I'm looking at. But I also have a second criteria. This is not going to be the people. The second criteria is, I'll share, this is a friendly group.
Yes.
I'll share this. I do a lot of angel investing. I am a terrible angel investor. I really am, and I have no excuse. You know, my deal flow is great, and I have the skills and experience to evaluate the tech and the marketing, and are they adequately capitalized. But I have a personality flaw. And the personality flaw is that I'm an optimist, and I like every idea that I hear. So I've realized I am not going to make money at this. Instead, I'm going to bet on, do I want this person to succeed? Do I like them? Do I want to have a front row seat watching them fight this battle? Wow. And it may not be a formula for making me a lot of money, but I've got to say it's incredibly emotionally satisfying to watch someone you've been rooting for finally achieve some level of success.
That's just amazing. That's real. Yeah, that's excellent. So when I do interviews, I always do a lightning round. Oh, so I want to do a lightning round. You ready?
Oh boy. Okay.
Here we go. What sound do you love the most?
Whoa, what sound do I love the most? I guess it's that gasp of surprise when something is better than you expected.
Oh, wow, that's so great. What is one thing people would be surprised to know about you?
That I don't work that hard.
There we go. That's the key, everyone. Number 3, what are you most proud of?
Oh, that's a hard lightning round.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to that previous answer. Listen, I've had 7 startups. I've had 2 multi-billion-dollar successes. That's not what I'm most proud of. I am most proud of the fact that I was able to do that and stay married to the same woman. Wow. And have my 3 kids grow up knowing me and, best I can tell, liking me. That's what I'm proud
Best
of.
I can tell. That's so great. That's actually so good. What is your favorite word?
No. That's to hear.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. What's your least favorite word?
Oh, wow. Gosh, I don't have a least. I don't know.
You don't have one? Okay.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine. What profession would you have chosen were you not in the profession you're in now?
I think I would have liked to have been a doctor.
Oh, okay.
I think what a fascinating business in which, same thing, you really have no idea what's going to happen and you have to figure things out.
Wow, that's great. And the last question, before we let you go, he's on his way back to the West Coast for a keynote tomorrow morning. We can all relate to that. If there's a heaven and if there are pearly gates, when you get there, what would you most like to hear?
You took all that seriously?
Ladies and gentlemen, Marc. That's so good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much.